This is Tyson Fury's latest interview with Kugan Cassius on AFL TV. Highly recommended. Fury says some things which I definitely agree with, but he says some other things which I strongly disagree with. As far as the things I agree with, he says that Anthony Joshua should not rematch Andy Ruiz straight away, that he should instead go away and, quote, learn how to box. Because if he doesn't, then he's going to end up being beaten by other people. He does not believe that there is enough time between now and November, December to address all the issues which got AJ into trouble in the first fight. Defensive issues, issues in terms of boxing on the back foot, potential mental weaknesses. These are all problems that need to be sorted out. And even if AJ does get past Ruiz in the rematch, those problems are going to persist. And because people now know he's vulnerable in terms of punch resistance, they're going to fight even harder against AJ. This is the things that Tyson Fury points out. And that it's only a matter of time, probably sooner rather than later, that even if AJ gets past Ruiz in the rematch, somebody else is going to get him. He recommends AJ forgets about that, goes on a journey of rehabilitation, reinvents himself as a fighter, builds himself back up gradually, and then challenges for world titles in the future. The world titles will always be there. I think that is definitely the best way to go. Yeah. Anthony Joshua was moved extremely fast in his career. He was rushed, actually, truth be told. He was rushed in his career. And although he was rushed, he still managed to achieve a tremendous amount. But he didn't round out his game. He didn't become as polished or as complete a fighter as he could have been after maybe 30 fights or 40 fights. He's been learning on the job, which is a very difficult thing to do because you're constantly under pressure. If you want to learn how to do certain things well, you're going to need to gradually step up the competition so you can practice certain moves without being under a crazy amount of pressure. Learn the technique, get it down pat first, then gradually step up the level of competition and learn how to hold it together in a particular style or with a particular strategy under pressure. But with AJ, he didn't get a chance to do that. He was rushed all the way through, becoming unified champion, taking part in huge stadium fights, unifications, fighting mandatory challenges against good men, fighting mandatory challengers who are good men. If Anthony Joshua rematches Andy Ruiz right away, then he's going to be right back in the lion's den with no real time to think. He just has to react. No real time to reinvent his style as a fighter, to plug all the holes in his defense and in his game. With challengers who are going to be far more aggressive now and far more confident, even if they get dropped, they're going to get back up thinking, nah, I can get him. If you look at Lennox Lewis, a good example. After he lost to Oliver McCall, and by the way, Tyson Fury and his trainer Ben Davison talk about Lennox Lewis and the comparison with Anthony Joshua right now in terms of whether AJ can come back the way Lewis did. Fury and his trainer Ben Davison are obviously a lot younger than me, so they don't remember the 90s as clearly as I do, but I can, because they talk about the Lewis coming back against McCall. Lewis didn't rematch McCall right away, but he tried to. His manager Frank Maloney was desperate to get the McCall rematch immediately, but they didn't have it in the contract to rematch McCall immediately. But in hindsight, I'm sure Lennox Lewis would tell you that it was the best thing that ever happened to him, losing to McCall and not getting the rematch right away, because it gave him the time and space he needed to work with Manny Stewart. And by the way, Manny Stewart trained Oliver McCall to beat him. So he hired Manny Stewart because he felt like, okay, this is the guy who trained McCall to beat me, so he must know what all my weaknesses are. So that's the guy that I need. because he can help me address these weaknesses. And that's exactly what Manny Stewart did, but it took a long time. Lennox Lewis was a shell of himself when he fought Lionel Butler. The confidence all gone. After that McCall defeat, took him a long time to rehabilitate himself, get his confidence back, learn the new techniques that Manny Stewart was teaching him. And then eventually, a couple years later, he rematched McCall. And even then, he wasn't the finished article. It was several years down the line when Lewis finally became the finished article. But he needed that rehabilitation period where he was away from championship competition, away from the pressure, where he could experiment in fights, where he could, practice different moves and different techniques. And you can practice in the gym all you like. It's not the same as being able to practice it in a professional fight. Yeah, and you don't need to be under pressure every time when you're trying to practice particular strategies. You need to be able to do it where you're not under so much pressure in some fights in order to perfect the technique. Once you've got the technique down pat, then you can step up the competition and try those same tactics and those same techniques in a more high pressure situation. But if AJ is to rematch Ruiz right away, he doesn't get the opportunity to do any of that. And those flaws in his game will still persist even if he gets past Ruiz. And that's a big if. Even if he gets past Ruiz in a rematch, the flaws are still going to be there, and it will only be a matter of time before somebody else gets him, probably sooner rather than later. The people who say that AJ needs to go right back into this rematch with Ruiz, these are people thinking short term. AJ is already a multi-millionaire. He don't need the money. AJ has already been a unified world champion. He could retire tomorrow and be good. Set for life. Him and his family and his kids. So really he's in a position where he can, if he wants to, take a step back and say, okay, let me chill. But at the moment it seems like pride, ego, maybe pressure from Sky, pressure from Eddie Hearn, pressure from DAZN. These are the things making AJ say, okay, let me go right into the rematch. And furthermore, let me take it in New York, the place where I lost. Because AJ has bought into this whole inferiority complex that a lot of British people and British fighters have when it comes to comparing themselves to Americans. And I'll get into that in a separate video because Beats did a very good video about it. And I'll go into the pros and cons of it. But yeah, I think that Tyson Fury is bang on the money with the stuff that he's saying about AJ. That AJ needs to reinvent himself as a fighter. And that jumping back in with Andy Ruiz is not the best decision. Even if he beats Ruiz, I don't think the issues will have been resolved. I've been saying for well over a year that AJ needs to get rid of Robert McCracken. McCracken's, done well, but he's taken AJ, in my opinion, as far as his abilities as a trainer will allow him to take AJ. I think AJ needs somebody else to come in and teach him something different. Somebody who has a better track record when it comes to teaching defense, particularly. And a longer, more extensive history of training heavyweights. Professional heavyweights. Yeah? That's what I think AJ needs, and I've been saying this again well over a year in my videos. It's nothing new. It's no reactionary business that I've just been saying after the Ruiz loss. Nothing like that. So yeah, that's where I agree with Tyson Fury. Now, as far as where I disagree with Tyson Fury, it's when Fury talks about the hierarchy of the heavyweight division as it stands. Tyson Fury has only had 2 world title fights in his whole life. A win and a draw. But despite that, he's trying to make out as though he has established himself as the best heavyweight in the division and the best heavyweight of this generation in just 2 fights. I've never heard something so ridiculous in all my life. But Tyson Fury, as good a fighter as he is, he's also a very, very manipulative individual. And he is trying his best Floyd Mayweather impression right now. And I don't mean necessarily in the ring, but also out of the ring. Because Floyd Mayweather had this strategy whereby he wasn't interested in taking on all comers. He didn't fight Antonio Margarito. He didn't fight Paul Williams. He didn't fight Vernon Forrest and several others. His attitude was, You guys all fight each other. And whoever's the last man standing, I'll think about fighting you. I won't necessarily go and fight you. I'll think about it. This is the situation that he set up. Now, why did Mayweather do this? He did this because he understood the law of averages. He understood that no matter how good you are, if you continue to fight top contender after top contender after top contender, taking on all comers, eventually you're going to lose. He knew this. He'd lost in the amateurs. He had a real close fight with Castillo first time around. He understands more than anybody that styles make fights. But he created this situation where he brainwashed a lot of people into believing that I don't need to fight this guy and that guy because I could beat them anyway. So what's the point in me fighting them? Well, boxing don't work like that. Yeah? The AJ Ruiz fight should have shown people that, because when I was talking in videos several times over the past year or so and telling you guys that out of the top three, AJ, Fury and Wilder, at least two of them are going to lose to somebody outside of the top three. When I was saying that a year ago and over the past year, the response from most people was, nah, I can't see it, man. I can't see any of the top three losing to somebody outside the top three. In fact, some of them were saying, well, maybe Wilder might, but I can't see Fury or Joshua losing to anybody outside the top three. This was the attitude. But what happened is exactly what I predicted, that at least one of the guys, I said probably two of the guys out of the top three are going to lose to someone outside the top three. And I stand by it. I think Fury or Wilder, at least one of them, is also going to lose to somebody outside the top three. At this moment, it looks more likely to be Wilder because of the fact that Fury intends to be very careful about who he's actually going to fight. If you listen to what he says in this interview, he's running around saying, I'm lineal champion, I'm this, that, I don't need to fight this, I don't need to fight Dylan White, I don't need to fight that one, I don't need to fight the other one. This is how he's carrying on. That he wants all these guys to all fight each other and then he'll fight the winner. You do not prove yourself to be the best heavyweight of the generation by doing that. It doesn't matter about what your opinion is of Tyson Fury. Oh, I think Tyson Fury is the best. He's clearly the best. Blah, blah, blah. He's the best of the generation. Bollocks. It doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter what I think. It doesn't matter what anyone thinks. What Fury thinks. What Joshua thinks. What Wilder. It doesn't matter what anyone thinks. All that matters is what takes place in the boxing ring. That's all that matters in terms of assessing somebody as the best of their generation. If you've only had 2 world title fights in your whole career, you cannot be going round claiming you're the best of the generation. You can't do that. That's ridiculous. You have to go out there and fight the people. Fight the Dylan Whites. Fight various top contenders. Fight the other champions. Then, you know what I mean? We can start saying, okay, maybe this is the best guy of the generation. Yeah? It's like, for example, Mayweather used to say, well, I don't need to fight Vernon Forrest because he lost to so-and-so. I don't need to fight Paul Williams because he lost to so-and-so. I don't need to fight Margarito. Excuse me, did I say Mayorga earlier? I think I said Mayorga. Excuse me, it's late. I meant to say Margarito. I don't need to fight Margarito. He lost to so-and-so. Well, what if AJ had said, I don't need to fight Andy Ruiz. He lost to Parker, and I already beat Parker. So I don't need to fight him. Do you understand? AJ went and fought Ruiz, a guy who'd lost to one of AJ's previous victims. And Ruiz beat him. Because boxing is chess, it's not checkers. Boxing is rock, paper, scissors. And speaking of Mayorga, rather than Margarito, who I intended to mention earlier on, Mayorga beat Vernon Forrest. Vernon Forrest beat Shane Mosley. Shane Mosley beat Mayorga. How about that? You see how that goes? That's boxing for you. When Vernon Forrest beat Mosley, everyone thought, okay, Forrest is the man. When he fought Mayorga, nobody thought that Forrest was going to lose that fight. But he did lose. And he lost the rematch too. But then Mosley comes along and beats Mayorga. Boxing is chess, it ain't checkers. It's rock, paper, scissors. Tyson Fury knows that, which is why he's trying to eliminate himself from that situation. He's trying to cut down on the number of contenders that he actually has to fight. And he's trying to choose his fights very carefully. Of course, Deontay Wilder is a top fighter. Of course he is. Nobody's saying that Tyson Fury is fighting rubbish when he's taking on Wilder. No, he's fighting a very good man. But in the meantime, in between taking on Wilder, he's taking on puddings like Tom Schwartz. He's not taking on Dylan White. He's not taking on, an Andy Ruiz or Hergovit or anybody like that. He's taking on people like Schwartz. And anybody out there thinking Schwartz is anywhere close to the level of an Andy Ruiz, you don't know anything about boxing. So, yeah, Fury is trying to do his best Floyd Mayweather impression right now. Not just in the ring, but out the ring too. With the mind games and the manipulation of the public. Being very disingenuous and crafty with the things that he's saying and the situation that he's trying to set up. Avoiding most of the top contenders and just rematching Deontay Wilder until the cows come home. That's not how you prove that you're the best fighter of the generation. You have to go out there and fight a multitude of top contenders. Not just fight one guy who you think you have his number and his style matches up well with yours. No. That's not how you do it. You have to fight a multitude of top contenders with different styles, as well as the Wilders. Then you can say, okay, I'm the best of this generation. I've had multiple world title fights. I've fought all the best contenders out there, beat them all. That's how you do it. That's what Lennox Lewis did. That's what Muhammad Ali did. That's what Mike Tyson did in his heyday. That's what the Klitschko's did. You don't fight 2 world title fights and say, okay, I've got a third with Wilder lined up, and after that, if I win, that's it, best of the generation. Load of rubbish. Only people who don't know anything about boxing, have a very poor understanding of the sport, know nothing about the history, or they've just got their heads buried up Tyson Fury's backside. Only those people would be convinced by nonsense like that. None of these guys have proved themselves to be the best of this generation. This generation has only just started, man. It might be halfway through at best. None of these guys have proven themselves to be the definitive best of the generation. Anyone who's saying that, listen, if it's your prediction that Tyson Fury will go on to prove himself to be the best of the generation, that's fair enough, if that's your prediction. But understand it's a prediction. He hasn't proven it yet. That's yet to be seen. That's yet to be proven. So, anyway, gonna leave it there, people. Those are my thoughts on this Tyson Fury interview on AFL TV. Highly recommended, very interesting. And as with all Tyson Fury interviews, there are going to be some truths, there are going to be some mistruths, some half-truths, and some flat-out lies. So you have to be very discerning and careful to analyze and try and read between the lines and search for possible motivations for everything that Tyson Fury says. But don't go from one extreme to the other, because you get some people who believe that everything that comes out of Tyson Fury's mouth is gospel. And then you get other people who believe that everything that comes out of Tyson Fury's mouth is a lie, which is equally as ridiculous. Tyson Fury does tell the truth sometimes, for God's sake. Not everything he says is a lie. He tells a lot of lies, talks a lot of rubbish. He's very manipulative often, but he does also tell the truth sometimes. He does also come up with some good points sometimes. You just got to be very discerning when you're listening to him talk. That's all. So those are my thoughts. Drop your thoughts in the comment section below. It's happening, I'm out.
Join me on Patreon. I upload a minimum of 2 podcasts every single week, covering a wide variety of controversial topics, as well as live stream Q&A sessions. Take a look on screen right now at some of the podcasts I've produced so far. For just $3 a month, the equivalent of about £2 a month, you get access to all my new podcasts and my entire back catalogue of past podcasts, including my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You can listen on your computer or on your smartphone or tablet by downloading the Patreon app from the Google Play Store or the App Store for free. The Patreon app also allows you to download each podcast in MP3. For less than the price of a cup of coffee, you get access to dozens of hours of exclusive content. It's easy to sign up, there's no contract, and you can cancel at any time. So come and join our community of free and critical thinkers by signing up with me here on Patreon today.